Perhaps when I was less experienced in working through those changes and sitting down and having to talk to people about that, you could easily kind of lose the sense of impact that you're having and the empathy around that. And I think it was brought home when, on an occasion after a day of particularly difficult conversations through the day, to be escorted to my car with protection to ensure I wasn't lynched, brings home actually the true impact around these changes and what they have on our employees and the guys in the workplace, both for those who perhaps are exiting an organisation and moving on in their career, albeit forcibly, as well as those that you're looking to retain who actually you want to be a part of the whatever the new world is, and how do you engage them, and sort of people like Jane to help actually communicate that story and help people understand about where they fit in.
Great, thanks very much. It was interesting because I had a young lady who worked for me. She was 22 years old, and she had to have a disciplinary conversation with somebody who was 30 years her senior. And I said, are you going to be okay? Do you want some backup? Do you want some support? And she said, Deborah, you can say anything to anybody as long as you do it with dignity, respect, and grace. 22 years old. I'm thinking, I have so much to learn from her. And it was true, and that's held me strong in many difficult conversations. How many of you employ large amounts of people? Hands up, please. Yep. Oversee people? Public sector? Private sector? Great. Okay, just so that you guys understand who you're talking to. So I have to say, employees should be at the heart of FM strategy. Are we doing that? Do you think as an industry we're doing that? Do you think that you say good morning, good evening, good afternoon to the cleaners as you walk through? Where are we getting that right or wrong?
I think traditionally, and not too controversial, but I think traditionally, no, I don't think we have. I don't think we've been very good at it at all, particularly in a business which is primarily primarily people, labour-driven resource. But I do think we're getting better at it. I have seen, I've been to several talks in the last 2 or 3 years by big organisations, some of the big players in our world, who actually have some quite compelling evidence to say, well, no, we are changing this. We are actually now putting the people that work for us on a much more important footing within our business. What's the impact of that? I think it's an obvious one. You retain the people that you want to retain in your business because you value them. So I think it's a long... We as an industry think we're very good at managing people. I'm not convinced by that. I think we need to get better at it, and hence the one of the throw the subject into the opening panel. I think employees absolutely have to be at the heart of our strategy, but we're not coming from a tradition of long years of being able to do that. So it's still a relatively new thing for us.
Do you think that that's just fear? I mean, the whole war on talent. Oh my God, we better look after our number one. Most expensive resource. So now we're going to change our focus from cost per square foot or rack, pack, and stack the traders into a room to all of a sudden looking at team members opposed to,
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think it is the fact that we, again, traditionally, I think we've been a commodity, and we need to move away from that as quickly as we possibly can. But I think we're not quite clear about how to do it. I think that's probably the biggest issue around why we're slower than we should be at making employees really the focus of our business. We're just not as good as we should be at doing it. We're focused much more on the outputs of what goes out the door.
Susan, 20 years with Nokia, so what differences have you seen in the way that we approach our team members?
Well, something we've done in the past couple of years is, as I say, our FM is outsourced. And one of the, we do, my part of my role is obviously measuring their standards of service. And so we put together KPIs. And what we've started to introduce are KPIs for the company that supply our outsourced staff about the way they treat their staff. So perhaps because, as you said, do people speak to the cleaners? that's the kind of, we've got all those people who are working for us every day, and if they don't do their jobs properly, it does impacts our staff, it impacts productivity of our staff, the workplace and everything. And so we've started to put into the KPIs things like staff retention. So we reward them for staff retention, making sure they've got training plans in place for all of their staff, and we measure those, you know, the amount of people against the target that they're trying to achieve. And so we're trying to, I suppose, as the client, encourage our outsourced suppliers to be better employers themselves, and give more to their people to encourage them. You know, bonus plans, and we obviously we don't tell them what to give people, because that gets into co-employment, and that's a whole other story. But you know, to encourage them to treat their employees well and retain their employees, because we know that that will then benefit us. So in a way, rather than do it ourselves, but we can dictate to others or offer them reward for doing so.
Jeremy, when you go into, you know, because you go to different organizations, is there a palpable change in the culture by how they treat their team? Can you sense it? Can you walk in and feel it when you go to these different organizations?
There's certainly quite a bit of variation, I think, as to where businesses are at. So I think a lot of organisations are in slightly different places, although all generally pointing in a direction where they're trying to work out how to put employees more at the heart of their strategy. And I definitely get a sense of that. What I think organisations are trying to work out is which levers they want to use to do that. What do they want to pull on? But the themes are very much around what Susan was just saying there, around you know, whether it be in a service agreement with your outsourced provider, whether it be, you know, in-house with an in-house FM team. In terms of this context, actually, it's around levers around how employees are engaged, how they're managed, and driving that through. So what I've seen is organisations paying a bit more attention, perhaps in bonus schemes, where people are bonused more around things like their employee engagement scores and retention. So that's definitely a theme I see across organisations. They may not have done it yet. They may have done it and starting to see the benefits and start to measure if they see a positive impact from that. So that's the trend I'm seeing come through, and I certainly am an advocate for that.
Jane, what prompted you to deliver these new training programs? Did you see something going horribly wrong? Did you take advice? Was it prompted by the team? And what impact do you hope to get out of that?
I think we brought our People and Learning development manager on just over a year ago, and she's been very instrumental in designing those programs rather than outsourcing. And I think those of you from Wales, a lot of the funding for training, you'll know that a lot of the funding for training has slowly diminished over the last couple of years. And I used to do a lot of work with the Welsh Government with the Investors in People model. So went into a huge number of organisations, and you do see a difference, a disparity in how people are bringing in different initiatives. And I think the in-house development model, I mean, it's transformed the way that we operate. And I think that we've benefited from sharing a lot of best practice between different teams and learning from each other. So FM integrating with the creative team, or commercial integrating with FM or front of house. And we've talked about our problems that you can see, rather than an external coming in and delivering learning, or us going out and training, which is also very beneficial. We've really benefited from that coaching and mentoring culture that's been created at the centre. And that's certainly helped to drive development. And some of the other things we sort of do in terms of putting people at the heart. I don't often see a customer. You know, I'll be sat in our office block in Eastring and don't often go out to front of house and actually see a customer. And the people that do are those that, you know, are sort of soft services teams. And, you know, what better way to reward them than winning Loo of the Year, which we've won several times. And going for things like Investors in People, which is really does force you to evaluate exactly how you're operating. And I think the model has scared some organisations, and perhaps they feel like it's quite an overwhelming model to get to grips with. How am I going to manage all of this training and talent development and recognition and reward when a lot of organisations are doing it anyway in their own way?